Hey, I'm Butterfly.
Hey, I'm Firefly.
Have you ever wondered if we aren't being told the truth about everything?
What have we been lied to about? Join us as we have conversations and ask questions about everything. We invite you to keep an open mind and consider the unfathomable.
Let's break the chains that enslave our minds. Come on, let's go down the rabbit hole. Hey, Firefly, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Butterfly?
Good. Well, what's going on today? What rabbit hole are we going down?
How about the rabbit hole of two-tiered justice?
Ooh,
Have you heard about this?
it seems to be happening a lot now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's kind of based on race.
Probably. Yeah.
Like, I don't know what race we are because nobody knows.
Yeah, because
But
we're fireflies and
yes,
butterflies.
exactly. But hypothetically, if we were white, I think we would kind of be getting the raw end of the stick in the two-tiered system. I'm starting to
Mm,
think.
starting to look that way.
I'm thinking we might be like, I don't know, maybe kind of set aside for genocide. Maybe,
Mm.
maybe. They might be thinking we need to get rid of the white people at this point. And one of the things that they're doing is they're saying, if you're not white, we can't really enforce the law on you. You
Oh,
know,
right.
like for instance, they had this viral video of this girl in the UK, and she's getting groped by an Indian dude at the nightclub. And
Some Indian dude she didn't know.
well, it didn't look like they were like close acquaintances. It looked like he was like a random dude, just like while she's dancing, just walking up and grabbing her boob
Oh,
and not caring that people are filming it and saying, "Hey, no, in Western civilization, that we don't do that.
yeah.
You don't just walk
That's
up and
rude.
grab a boob." I mean,
That's
yeah,
just
we kind
rude.
of frown upon it.
Right.
It's kind of rude. It's a little invasive, but um, there was this whole Twitter phenomena. I guess I should say X phenomena,
Hmm.
where the girl posted the video and it went viral, and people started pointing out, well, it's kind of weird. I mean, the UK is an island. You got to remember,
Right.
they've shipped in the last 20 years over 2 million Indian people into that country.
Wow.
And India is called the rape capital of the world. They
Hmm.
have what's called rape culture over there, where women just kind of get raped. Like they had like a lady went and visited India with her husband, and just like 20 dudes just came and just like said, "We're gonna rape your wife." And the dude was
Jeez.
like total like lefty. He was like, "Oh, I didn't like it, but it's part of the culture." It was like, you
I
know,
sacrificed my wife to
he
the
did. Like
gangbanger.
every interview, he was like, "We would still go back to India. It's a
Oh,
beautiful place,
gosh.
beautiful people." It's like, wait, they gang raped your wife, and it's like, well, yeah, they did, but I still don't.
I
It's
don't
just a
blame
really
them.
tough situation. So he is incapable of coming out and saying, "Hey, these people are fucked up." It's like you can't say that anymore
Yeah.
because they're a protected class
A
now.
protected class.
That's what we
Okay.
have now. We have these
Interesting.
protected people. So like the phenomena on X was like this. It was like people saw the video, were outraged by it, obviously, because
Mhm.
this guy's blatantly feeling this girl up and doesn't stop, doesn't care that she's like clearly making it clear, like, I'm
I
not
don't want
inviting
this.
this. And they're saying, um, wow, look at what we're doing. We're importing all these third world people who don't have the same values as the first world,
Hmm.
and they are causing this huge spike in sexual assault in the UK. And it's perfectly in conjunction with how many they've brought in. But so the comments are kind of in that vein. And then you see the comments of like the managers, right? The cult managers going on
Mm.
there and
The
saying,
handlers.
this is getting out of control. Sexual assault is wrong, and it doesn't matter what the race is of the person perpetrating the sexual assault, right? So it's like this notion, like it doesn't matter. Like colorblindness is okay in that instance, right? We're supposed to
Right.
be colorblind. But then people are like, but wait a minute, I think it's kind of like skyrocketing in Europe because we've been bringing all these like third world people in. And they act kind of like barbarians a little bit.
Because it's part of their culture.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they're kind of barbarians.
Mm-hmm.
And they always have been going back like thousands of years. And then when they come in here and they have no regard, like the kind of mentality is, oh, well, she was wearing a mini skirt. She's asking for it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And we don't really think that way in the West. So we're kind of importing this. So it kind of brought up this notion of like, we don't really enforce the law anymore for certain protected classes.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of get away with it. So in the UK, it came out in the wash recently that um, there was this whole grooming gang going on, this whole big rape grooming gang.
Oh.
Yeah. And it was exposed. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a fact. They arrested a whole bunch of Muslim men who, for like 30, 35 years, had been grooming young white girls in Britain to become sex trafficked.
Yuck.
So gross. And they have these girls who've just had to go through that and now they're speaking out about it,
Mm-hmm.
which is brave,
Yeah.
and it is gnarly. And they get death threats and stuff. And so if you go expose it, you get thrown in jail in the UK right now.
You mean if you talk about that happening,
Yeah,
that's a crime?
that's a crime on you.
It sounds like a thought crime
It's a
almost.
thought crime. It's a
Okay.
thought crime. It's because you're the way they kind of justify their their crackdown on talking about it is they say, well, it's going to cause violence. You're going to cause violence
By
by
talking about it.
talking about it. So if you point out truths that are not really convenient, you're going to cause violence. Well, it doesn't cause violence. Violence is perpetrated by a person who says, I'm going to go be violent. I'm not causing violence by speaking words. That person's choosing to go be violent
Right.
based on words that I spoke. So you can't blame that
It's
on
like
me.
killing the messenger.
Yeah.
So, in other words, like, it's okay to do the raping, but if you talk about
Yeah.
people doing the raping, that's the problem.
And it's kind of like this selective outrage because remember during Me Too, it was like, you rapist. And it was like, well, I went to Harvey Weinstein's hotel room with me in the morning and he's wearing a robe, but we were supposed to be there to talk about business. But that's rape, you know? But now it's not really rape that we want to talk about in these other instances. So it's like selective outrage,
Yeah.
two-tier justice, kind of like almost like a cult determining like who's going to get punished for crimes and who's not,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is kind of an interesting phenomena because it kind of speaks to a larger phenomena taking place, right? So how could it pertain to what's going on in the States? Like we could look at like have you noticed that Walgreens is leaving San Francisco?
Along with a lot of other businesses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And they're also leaving New York, right? All these big pharmacy chains, because both New York and San Francisco have these very liberal laws. And essentially, if you're black, you can do whatever you want.
Well, people can just go into those places and just take whatever they want, basically.
Yeah.
Just steal stuff and walk out, and this
If you're black or brown. But if you're white, you're probably going to get
probably.
probably.
Yeah.
But if you're black or brown, you can just walk in and up to like $900, which in CVS, you can kind of grab a lot of
You
stuff.
could get a lot of stuff.
I mean,
Yeah.
you can have like a shopping cart full of stuff and just be like, I'm under 900.
I
Thanks.
mean, like in some of those cities, they really jack the prices up, probably to cover a lot of the theft. But still,
like
for
a
900
case of
bucks,
Monster Energy drinks at least.
yeah, for 900 bucks, you can get a lot of stuff.
And you see these people, like I've seen videos. I don't know if you've ever seen these videos, but like um, they'll have like the leaked CCTV
Mm-hmm.
and it'll show the dude just go in, grab a bunch of stuff, and they know they're the protected class, the protected group. And so they just walk right past the security guard with their stuff, and the security guard has orders like
Just
you're
let
going to
them
lose your
go.
job. You have to let them go.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I think that kind of pertains, like they had the dude who was arrested the other day that was just like on the subway naked, which is probably not cool.
Ew.
Yeah. You
Gross.
know, and
I
he's
mean,
just
unless
like,
he's like some hot model or something. I don't want to see
I
him.
don't think he was.
Yeah.
I don't think he
Even a hot
was.
model, I think be kind of gross just to like see him sitting there naked on the subway, you know?
I think even then you kind of want
Be
to
kind of
like have it
gross.
be like on demand. You don't
Yeah.
want to have it like foisted on you,
Right.
you know,
Yeah. And
no
he's
matter
just
what.
like sitting like naked on like the dirty subway seat.
Yeah, and
So,
he's a homeless guy. Probably hasn't been really working on his abs, so I don't
yeah.
know. It probably wasn't a great sight to see for a lot of people. There might have been one or two girls, and there was like, not bad. But my point is like, the dude gets arrested, and they look at his rap sheet, and he's been arrested like 47 times or something like
Oh
that
my
in the
gosh.
subways, doing all kinds of really weird stuff. And like, all that happens is he gets checked into the cop station, and then they let him go.
Yeah.
No fine, no nothing. And I'm wondering if that's I'm not wondering. That's a concerted effort. That's a part of a plan.
That is totally part of a plan. In fact, I remember it was just like a couple years ago. I was going into the local Target and I know like some of the cops, in town, and
Mhm.
I see one I know, and he's just like hanging out with his cop car in front, and I'm like, hey, what's up? And we start talking. We were talking for like 15 minutes. And then he's like, well, I probably got to go. I got a client in the back seat. And I'm like, oh, you got a client in the back seat. What's up?
Oh, client?
He was-
That's how it works. I guess so. That's what I'm getting paid for.
and he's like, oh, yeah, he was stealing stuff inside the store, and I found like heroin in his pocket and stuff. So I got to take him in. And I'm like, well, what's going to happen? And he's like, nothing. He'll get a slap on the wrist and he'll be out this afternoon
Yeah.
because of these laws. Like nothing happens to these
So
guys.
lame.
Yeah.
Like I was talking with a cop too, and one of we were out to dinner, and we were talking with a cop up in NorCal,
Hmm.
and I was like, oh, so tell me some of your, cracky tales, as they say, tell me some of the cocktails. And so he was telling me about an arrest of like some adults who were trying to break into a warehouse, right? And then I go, were they illegals? And he goes, yes, admitted it. And then and I go, so what do you guys have to do? And he goes, nothing. We can't even book them. They have special stipulations with that. And we pretty much just have to let them go. And he's like, he even admitted it. He's like, that's where the system breaks down. And it's like, that's kind of a weird way of putting we don't enforce the law. It's not the system breaking down.
It's almost beyond we're not enforcing the law. It's almost like we're going against what the law should be.
We're weaponizing these people
Yeah.
against you.
Yeah.
I
And
think that's
there's got to be a reason for that,
well, I think
to purposely allow this to happen.
I think it's like sabotaging our first world. I
It's
think
totally sabotaging. Yeah. And sabotaging our justice system.
like why do we have to just be like diverse? Like
Every place.
every first world country has to be diverse. And what does that mean? That means we have to take in hordes of these people that don't share our values. They don't really care about our history. It's not like they come here and they want to assimilate, you know?
No, they all kind of want to stay in their own little groups. They have like neighborhoods,
Yeah.
town, like that's why there's like Chinatown and stuff like that. They
Yeah.
want to stay with their own people. And
Which is cool.
that's kind of like natural for people to want to do.
Yeah. So why can't we have Chinatown, but then like white people town? It's just like that's over here. They
That's
don't want
racist.
that. That's
That's
racist,
racist.
right?
Yeah.
But if you have like Japantown and Chinatown, and this is Little Italy, that's the closest you can get to like having white people down, right? I guess Italians are like they're kind of tan.
Hmm.
I guess they kind of get away with it. But yeah, and I'm wondering if we're being assaulted by these people like a weaponized group against us in order to kind of tear down the first world. I don't think they want us. I think because we've talked a lot about like what's the whole agenda? Like if we're conspiracy theorists, what's the conspiracy? I think the conspiracy is um depopulation, right?
Hmm.
Depopulation is
Right.
the goal.
Yeah.
And
Digital surveillance and
digital
digital
surveillance,
currency.
and they want us kind of they want us to hurry up and get crammed into these 15-minute cities.
Hmm.
And the first world doesn't live like that. We
Right.
have single family dwellings,
So
and we
they
have
have
strong communities and strong schools. They don't like that. They
no,
have to destroy that.
they have to get us used to the idea of being crowded in with a lot of people. And,
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, we were just talking earlier about how they're really pushing this whole idea of, you know, ADUs, auxiliary dwelling units people are building in their houses.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
Like
all
a
these,
little house in the back.
yeah, a lot of people, and they're pushing this idea. Like Gavin Newsom was totally pushing the idea, like you should welcome the homeless people, and put a little shack in your backyard and let these people live in your yard.
Let's see you do that, Gavin. Do you think
Yeah,
Gavin's doing that?
yeah.
Like
Invite them to
just
your winery, Gavin.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the homeless dude that lives on my property. Hey, Bob, how's it going?
yeah,
Guaranteed that's not happening.
yeah, totally. But they want all these people to be like crowded together, and basically to have us all living on top of each other.
Because that gets back to Malthusian extermination.
Hmm.
Like Malthus, we talked about him, where he just kind of like was like, how can we just like exterminate lots of people in a real efficient way? And he like gave it a lot of thought. He sat down and really tinkered around with it, which kind of is
And didn't you say that he came up with the idea to put everybody into ghettos, basically?
yes.
Yeah,
That was the whole
yeah,
Malthusian idea was, oh, well, people are real easy to exterminate if you get them crammed into a ghetto, because then you can kind of just maybe like release a virus.
yeah.
We've got 450 BSL bioweapons labs around the world that are like creating like Ebola and
Right.
stuff.
It'll be easy.
Yeah.
And
And
plus, it's like, it just goes to the whole idea of we're overpopulated. They're selling this idea that
yeah,
we're overpopulated. And so a lot of people live in these cities where everybody's crammed together and they think we're overpopulated. But if you like actually get in your car and like drive across the country, you will come across miles of land
New
with
Mexico is pretty spread out.
yeah, Montana. I mean, there's just miles and miles where you'll see nothing but just green space and no houses, and
Everybody wants to live
it
on the
doesn't look,
coast in the
yeah,
places where the TV told them to.
right. And it just doesn't look overpopulated when you start getting out there.
No, it's not. And I think that's an inversion that the cult is trying to get us to believe is that there's this scarcity,
Yeah.
right? So with scarcity,
There's too
where
many people, and we're using up everything. The climate's changing, and it's just like fear, 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 and the people are the
they
cause.
don't want somebody to go, no, 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 there's
Yeah.
solutions. There's solutions. We can handle this. There's plenty. There's
Yeah.
enough.
We can move to Montana.
We can move to Montana. There's enough. There's enough. We can figure this out. But they don't want that. They want us to. I think that's kind of part of the whole thing of like being afraid all the time. But I think that kind of ties into this crashing third world populations into the first world seems to be kind of what's going on. And then these people have carte blanche to commit crimes
Yeah,
with impunity,
that doesn't
kind
make
of.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, no, like you remember the George Floyd thing, right?
Oh, yeah. Actually, that was one of the main things that woke me up to the lies, because I
Oh,
think we
really?
talked about this before. Yeah, because I saw somebody put out like the whole 18 minutes of pre like arrest or whatever. Um, the whole video of
Which actually was like an hour and a half where they were
yeah,
handling him with kid gloves.
right. It was
Right?
like went on and on, but I saw like 20 minutes of
Tiny.
yeah. And it was a very different story than the like 30
He was
seconds or
freaking out.
2 minutes that they showed on MSNBC.
Yeah, he was
Hmm.
freaking out the whole time
Hmm.
and going, oh, I can't breathe. No, don't put me in the back seat.
And the guy he was saying that before the guy was even touching him.
He was just sitting in the back seat.
Yeah. And he's like, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. So then that turned into this whole like thing that people were even putting on t-shirts and stuff. I can't breathe, and it's like, did you actually watch the
No.
whole thing? No.
Even
You
if they
know,
did, they would just tune that out. That would be like all,
right.
oh, no.
That doesn't go along with my
Cognitive
truth.
dissonance. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's outside of my bubble. That's information that kind of, I think what people get is they get a bubble, and we've talked about this. they need a media narrative to assuage their fears,
Yes,
right?
totally. Totally.
So when you have somebody terrified, you have to have somebody telling them, I know you're afraid, but it's okay. Check out this narrative.
Right.
And then they go, oh,
And they go along with
I
it.
feel better. But then you come along and you say, you're being lied to. That narrative's a lie. And here's a fact that proves that that narrative is a lie. And they go, no, no.
No, I won't look at that truth.
Yeah. It's like offering
Yeah.
them like caffeinated beverage at night. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
no, 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 thank you.
Yeah. I
No.
mean, yeah, so they don't even consider the fact that he was like wasted out of his brain, and he was a drug addict, a criminal that had beaten up his girlfriend, I think, or
He put a gun to her pregnant belly, I
yeah,
think, which doesn't sound like a nice guy.
doesn't sound like a nice guy. And then the guy ends up with, I mean, this was during the whole Cooties fiasco, and there were like these huge funerals taking place where, I mean, they were telling people you're not really supposed to be like in public places together, and yet there were like thousands of people together, like the presidents
Again.
and everybody, in these big funerals. And then he's got like streets named after him, and
But
murals and
that was
stuff.
a double standard during COVID too, right?
Yeah,
It was like, well, all of you dirty humans have to wear your mask and stay in your homes. But wait a second, there's a big BLM protest going on, and everybody's standing like in the street
yeah,
right next to each other, and
shoulder
none
to
of them are
shoulder.
wearing masks.
Right.
But that's okay because that's an important protest.
It's okay if they like get cooties on each other.
That's fine.
Yeah,
The cooties are taking the day off because
because of BLM.
this is social justice.
Right.
And cooties they can't penetrate social justice.
No, no.
So I think that you could probably catch COVID if you're walking like a couple of blocks down from the protest. But if you actually are at the
Or
BLM
if you didn't
protest,
agree with the protest, you'd probably get it.
you could still catch
Yeah,
COVID. That's right.
totally.
But see, that's kind of gets back to this double standard that's going on. You know what I'm saying? Remember Kyle Rittenhouse?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Remember him?
Yeah.
And remember how like now whether or not it was advisable for him to be out that night in what was he in the name of the town I can't remember, is like some little town in Wisconsin,
Yeah.
right?
Just like Midwest somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like out there and they're protesting and he goes out to protect his grandpa's car dealership or something like that,
Yeah.
right? And he ends up getting like almost killed and defends himself successfully with a gun.
Right.
And I think one of them died and one of them got his arm shot off or something like that. And they were going to throw the book at him.
Mm-hmm.
They really wanted to. And when the judge let him off, it was a big thing. It was like, oh my God, this is white supremacy and all
Right.
this stuff, right? And it kind of just illustrated more and more. They also had that Sandman guy who the big Indian guy came and started drumming next to him, remember? And he was just like laughing at him or whatever. And all he did was just kind of smile at him and just kind of go, you're a weirdo. And that was like, look at that entitled white boy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It became a big thing. Well, I think we're kind of becoming programmed to normalize this two-tier justice system.
Yeah. It's
And
like unracism.
it's unracism, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, you know, yeah, that's the law, but those people can commit that crime because they have like special dispensation
Mm-hmm.
because of their race.
And there's still people to this day who are like hanging BLM flags and stuff. And it's like, I just feel I feel kind of like sorry for those people, because it's like when I see that, I think, wow, they are so uninformed and ignorant. They
Yeah.
don't realize, like, it's even been, I thought it was just widely just debunked in public knowledge everywhere, that was a whole thing started by Marxist leaders. The one of the main like people in that whole thing is she's an admitted Marxist. It's like, okay, that's not exactly a good thing. We talked about isms before.
Yeah, and she even
Isms
said,
are
I got trained on like
Marxism.
Marxism and like social upheaval.
Yeah. And it's like she admits this, and yet people still think that was a good
It's
thing.
part of this what's the name of those two people that did the divide and conquer thing back in like the 60s?
It's total divide and conquer.
It's like
Yeah,
that's what
that's
it totally is. It's all this whole thing of like us versus them,
hmm
and they keep fomenting that on purpose.
right. And there's a lot of like white people who jumped on the bandwagon to be like, oh, I'm so cool and
Like all the
so
people who were kneeling. Remember all those white?
yeah,
It was like a bunch of white, like middle class bored kids were kneeling at the BLM rallies.
yeah.
And it's like, oh my
So
God, they were so brainwashed.
remember Nancy Pelosi when she wore that like
Oh my God.
tribal outfit and she was like kneeling? I mean, she looked so
They were all
insane.
so fake.
Yeah,
And then she had to get back up off her knees, and that was an ordeal.
that was an ordeal.
She had like an aide going, "Come on, Nancy." And she was just like, "Oh,
Should have done that.
like they didn't even have the noise on the footage because she was probably making noise like a Skeksis as she was getting up. But that's kind of what I'm talking about. Like, okay, they're brainwashing people into like accepting
Mhm.
this. Like the Chick-fil-A dude. Have you heard about this guy?
No.
The, so the owner of Chick-fil-A was awesome. He started Chick-fil-A and started making awesome chicken sandwiches,
hmm
and they're killer. And my daughter loves them,
They
and
are
we eat
good.
them.
They
Then,
are good.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then I guess he knocked off, and now his son has taken over.
Oh.
And they had an interview with his son where he, and I'm not joking, he kissed the converse of this black dude on a talk show
Oh
and
gosh.
apologized vehemently for being white and being a racist. And it was
So
like a
weird.
capitulation. It was
That
like,
sounds kind of like some kind of cult ritual type
I'm
thing.
thinking, yeah,
Like he had, like his handlers told him, "You must do this now."
yes. And he
Uh-huh.
went out and he did. He looked like he was kind of just following his marching orders.
Uh-huh.
It didn't feel organic at all.
That's really bizarre.
Yeah. So, and it's kind of like this whole thing. I think political correctness is becoming a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
You're not allowed to tell the truth.
Mm-mm. And even if you do tell the truth, it's like there's so much cognitive dissonance that people they can't see it.
Yeah,
Like you pointed out, and they're just like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. You
yeah,
know?
exactly. It's kind of like when you go, now, when I walk into the restaurant, I have to wear a mask.
But when I sit down, it's okay to take it off.
Then I can take it
The
off.
germ because the germs are only like up like
That's
above like you're probably like what 3 feet when you're sitting. I mean, I think they start at about 3'2" and up to 6'2".
okay.
So the germs are kind of
Yeah,
like
I don't
they're
even know how.
floating like sort of in this area above your head.
They're not going to go down into your food. Now you're in the safe
Yeah.
space, you know?
Just like when you're on an airplane or in a movie theater,
Yeah,
you don't
you don't need
you
them.
don't need them while you're eating.
You can have your peanuts on
Yeah.
the plane and
But
suddenly you're
once you
impervious.
stop eating though,
You better put it back on.
that's where the germs come in.
I remember I was walking on the beach during COVID, and you know how there's like a promenade, like a bike lane, and then there's the sand.
Yeah.
You could walk on the bike lane, you could walk there, but it was clearly marked: "Do not walk on the sand,"
Oh
because
gosh.
the COVID was out there.
Oh, it was. It was like cootie sand.
It was. You
It,
were
that's
impervious
super
on
weird
the bike
because
path.
I would think that so okay, even if I'm going to go along with that crazy story, that doesn't even make sense on multiple levels because if there's cooties, they're probably not going to be like where the salt water is.
I
They're
mean,
going to be more where the bike path
wouldn't you
is
think?
with all the people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
like
that was the safe area.
yeah,
But out on the sand was no good. And
this
remember,
oh my
they
god.
arrested that one dude like paddleboarding by the pier in Malibu, and they were like, "Come back in! You're not wearing a mask."
You're spreading cooties in the
And he had to
ocean.
like paddle in to be arrested.
The fish are
And
all going to get sick.
I mean, and so I think I think what's going on now is the cult is saying, "I know this is ridiculous, but you're not allowed to point it out."
This is reality. Don't
Yes.
pay attention to what you see. This is your reality. We're
Yes.
telling you what reality is.
And so that's
They're
why,
curating reality,
yeah. And
right?
you go, but wait a minute, like rape is kind of becoming a big issue in the UK. Like it's becoming bad.
like considerably worse since
Like
we had
girls
all
are
these
like
people come.
afraid to walk outside at night. Like I heard interviews, they're like, I don't go outside at night. And that's kind of gnarly. I mean,
Yeah,
think about how we grew up. We went outside at night all the time,
yeah,
just cruised around. I mean, you're female. You remember when you used to just cruise around
yeah. I didn't have to really worry about like just randomly getting groped,
like a
really.
barbarian rape just
Yeah,
taking place. It could happen, but it's probably remote. Now it's like chances are
it's
like
gonna happen.
9 out of 10. You're probably gonna get raped on the way to McDonald's,
Yeah.
And they're gonna be like, "Oh, well, that's your fault. Wearing your stupid mini skirt. You're asking for it." So I think, and then there's like this cognitive dissonance with. Have you ever heard of these people who are like refugees welcome? They're
Oh
like in
yeah,
Sweden, and it
yeah.
was like, oh, I love refugees, and then you read like those two girls both got raped and beheaded.
Oh,
It's like, because they want to go. Everybody just keeps telling me that the Middle East is so dangerous. That's so xenophobic.
oh yeah, xenophobic. That's one of their favorite.
Yeah.
I saw this clip of some girl in Ireland, and she was like speaking at some it was like a city council meeting or something, and she was just like desperately like crying out for, we have to have a day to of the national hijab. What's it called? A hijab, the thing that they wear.
Oh, yeah, the
Yeah.
face cover.
Yeah, she wanted that to be like a special day for my Muslim sisters, she said. And I'm like, with her thick Irish
Are we a
accent.
Muslim
She
country?
was like saying that with her thick Irish accent.
Yes.
And I'm like, what the heck? Like,
Oh, and
how
Ireland is
brainwashed do you
gnarly.
have to be? I heard Ireland is totally
Have you
gnarly.
seen what like they'll have like Ireland is like a whole I mean obviously I've never been to Ireland, but they got Dublin, which is a pretty big city, but they have like a bunch of little hamlets.
Yeah.
And these hamlets will have like, maybe like 5,000 people living there, and then they'll have like 10,000 third world barbarians just like there.
That is so sad. That
It is.
I
It's
I
gnarly.
always wanted to go to Ireland. Like that's one of the places I've always wanted to go, but now it's like, I don't know, I'm kind of scared to go there. I
My
mean, it sounds
sister
super dangerous.
back in like 91, my sister went and did the Eurorail all through Europe.
Oh, yeah.
And like you can just get off the train, go
Hmm.
hang out in hostels, and
Yeah.
then get back on the train. And she didn't even spend that much money and spent like the whole summer over there. And she said it was unbelievably awesome. Would you do that now?
No way. There's no way.
There's no way.
Yeah.
Unless you're just like, I'm going to go on a rape tour.
Yeah.
I just want to go get raped by, third
In
world
every
barbarians
city.
in every different city and just see what it's like. I just want to experience things. So I think it's kind of interesting. That whole thing kind of took place. And I was thinking, it's weird how political correctness is being used against us. So you can't speak out. But then also the laws are being enforced in this two-tiered way. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
It's almost like the laws are being unenforced, like
They're not.
reverse enforced. So what should be
Yeah.
illegal is considered, fine. And
Like the glaring example of it was um, you have this whole big rape gang thing going on in the UK, which they made a few arrests, but it doesn't include everybody who's involved.
right.
And so there's been all of this um, laissez-faire law enforcement going
Oh,
on. But then just the other day, they went and arrested a guy for a Facebook post. Arrested him. He went to jail, and I think
I
he got a
heard
pretty
about that.
yeah. And
Yeah.
because I think he called like one of the MPs a name or something like that. And they said, "Oh well, your posts are disinformation or whatever." So that kind of stuff they're cracking down on.
Yeah, that's just crazy.
You
I
know,
mean that's illegal. So that I mean that's
so that's
basically
illegal. But rape is kind of like, well, it's done by these kind of protected groups, so we're not really going to arrest.
yeah.
You know,
It's like they're, basically shooting the messenger and arresting for thought crimes. I mean, I feel like we've
yeah.
really gone into the 1984.
Thought crimes take
So,
precedence over physical
yeah,
violence and like rape and theft. These things are
those are
falling.
okay,
Those are okay,
but
but thought crimes are
don't
really bad.
don't think about it. Don't mention it. Don't post it. I mean, posting it on Facebook is a crime. Like that just doesn't even make sense.
Look at how that one guy was kind of. tried in the court of public opinion. The did you see that guy that was on the subway and the black dude was like clearly like menacing and
Hmm.
threatening people in the car. And so
Oh
he
yeah.
finally subdued him and
Yeah.
did like a chokehold to make sure. I don't think the guy even went unconscious. He
Yeah.
just like subdued him so that he wouldn't like
Attack.
harass other passengers.
Right.
Heroic. In my opinion, that's heroic.
Yeah.
You know, he basically,
Yeah, because he didn't know what that guy might do. He could have had a knife or anything. And
yeah.
yeah.
So he subdued him. And then that guy was like almost looking at 25 years.
Right.
Like by the hair of his chinny chin chin, escaped that New York cult court system.
Yeah.
Because New York has become like a cult court system.
Well, and I think they're trying to make examples of people like that, you know? So
Yeah.
now, how many people do you think? I mean, not a lot of people would do that anyway, jump to the rescue of all these strangers on,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But now, after all that happened, more people are going to think twice about trying to step in and
They're trying to
intervene.
train us and condition us to just be like,
Just close your eyes, look the other
it's like
way, and
she's being raped, but I better not do anything about
yeah,
it. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just gonna put on my headphones and look the other way.
that's exactly it.
It's better to do that than go and try to be a hero because you're going to get punished for
The
that.
hero will get punished.
And he was looking at like 25 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that like your life is ruined. And prison probably sucks really bad. And so people are probably going, I don't know. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So that was like a glaring incident. And then the other one was, did you see that dude down in Arizona? He's like a 75-year-old guy. And he had a big ranch, and the illegals would like run across his land when they come across the border,
Oh,
right?
right. Yeah.
And the dude, it's not like he went out and shot him for just running across his front yard.
Yeah.
They came up in the middle of the night and tried his screen door, and it was locked. And then were taking out knives and going to try to break into his home. So he opened the door and said, "No, fuck you," and he shot him, killed him, right? And he got exonerated finally. He got exonerated finally, but went through a total legal ordeal where he was facing,
And that's crazy
you
because
know,
it's like you can't even defend your own property anymore. It's like
yeah,
you're the one who did something wrong, you know?
that's it. And
Or
I think that's a conditioning. I
yeah,
think we're being trained to,
to go along with that.
submit. I
Hmm.
think that's it.
I
I think
think
that's what
so.
this whole thing is about. It's you submit and you do what we tell you to do.
Yeah, and just shut up
And you're
and
going
don't
to,
comment on it.
and I think some people are going to have to maybe jump on the grenade in order to stop this. And they're going to have to be one of the people who faces life in prison or, you know, commit a thought crime. But I think that's kind of what we're kind of doing. We're kind of just like calling attention to this kind of stuff and saying, is that really what we want to live in? Do we want to
Right.
live in that kind of a society?
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, when I was growing up, I remember my mom used to say, sticks and stones may break your bones, but
names will
dirty
never
words will
harm you.
never hurt you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know what's happened now, but it's like you can't even say what's really happening and
Like you ever
say
heard
it's
these little
dangerous.
college girls, like they'll be like, "Oh my God, words are violence."
Yeah.
And it's like,
Not really.
no, words are words. And violence is like physical.
Yeah.
But no, words are violence now. And words that they don't like are not allowed.
This is what they're trying to get into their
I think,
heads.
yeah. And I think that's kind of where we're headed. And people are kind of maybe self censoring a lot. Have you seen
Oh,
that?
yeah, for sure.
You know?
Yeah.
You see people that go, "Oh my God, I totally agree with you, but I don't want to talk about it."
That's not PC.
Yeah. It's like,
We're not very PC.
I think at this point, if something is offensive, it's probably good.
Hmm.
Like what we just talked about probably offended a lot of people.
I know.
They
I
got
think
so mad.
we probably got kicked off a few more Christmas card lists.
Probably. They got really mad. But then why are they mad? Because we're exposing their programming.
Hmm.
And like we were talking about earlier, the programming is assuaging their fears. So I
Totally.
think a lot of people are just really scared all the time.
Yeah.
And the only thing that gives them any kind of relief is their narrative programming that they're tapped into. It's like, oh, but Joy Reid tells me this.
So they can just agree with these people and,
Yeah.
like MSNBC and stuff and then they feel like As
Or
long as
Fox
I,
News.
yeah, Fox News, whatever.
Yeah.
As long as I go along with that and agree with it, then
Well,
everything's
that's kind
okay.
of what we were talking about with the new blue pill with the Trump cult, right?
Hmm.
And you go up and you say, but could he be working with these technocrats to create like a digital prison? And maybe Trump and Elon are in on it. And they don't want to hear that. They get mad
They get really mad.
because what you're doing is you're interrupting their assuaging of their fears that this narrative is telling them. They're like um, the Trump cult has been afraid. They've been really afraid.
Mhm.
And now they have this whole narrative of Trump and the White Hats are in
And
and
Trump's going to save the day.
they're saving the day.
Yeah.
You're good to go now.
Yeah.
You can let your guard down, take a deep breath. Everything's
Right.
okay.
And they don't want to be afraid anymore. So
Which I understand,
I
but
get it, but the more people who are aware of what's going on and not complying with all these things, the better. If
I'd
we,
rather know, even if it's scary,
yeah,
than just keep living a lie just to kind of keep my head in the sand.
right,
You know what I'm saying?
totally.
So, anyways, I felt like that was an important topic for us to kind of go down because I think that's kind of a larger phenomenon.
Yeah,
What we're dealing with is a two-tiered system, and the two-tiered system has many different aspects, but this racism, anti-racism thing is kind of one of the heads of the Hydra. Yes.
hmm. And it's a big way that they are keeping us divided. And
That's right.
it's easier, I mean, divide and conquer. It's much easier to kind of keep controlling us if we're fighting with each other.
And that was, I can't remember their names. It was two people, and they were of that one persuasion from the country that started
Huh?
in 1948. But
Interesting.
they came up. I can't remember their names, but that was the whole Saul Alinsky kind of takeover plan. Remember Saul Alinsky?
Yeah.
He had this whole idea of we need to divide and conquer. You need to get everybody fighting with each other, and that's how America finally falls.
Hmm.
And I think that we've pretty much successfully seen that get implemented because
Totally.
everybody's at each other's throats,
Yeah.
you know?
And even what's really kind of scary and sad is that even, you know, the group, I think this divide and conquer thing is something that they have to keep pushing out there in every direction. So it can't just be like, oh, we're going to divide people, between races. They've got to keep dividing us further and further down. So now even like the people that maybe you agreed with, about like
Okay.
politics, like a couple years ago, well, maybe now you don't agree with those people anymore. So, now we're going to divide. So each group splits off and it's like little splits here and there.
And you notice how if someone doesn't agree with you, they'll just, I'm never talking to you again. It's kind of weird. Like,
Yeah,
it's like,
seriously.
whoa, I mean, just one little thing,
Yeah,
if you don't totally align up with
with
people's
everything.
orthodoxy, and that's what I think's going on. Everybody's got their like orthodoxy.
Hmm.
And if you don't just completely drink their brand of Kool-Aid, then okay, that's fine, but I'm never talking to you again.
Hmm.
I think we got to get past that. We got to get to the point where people can kind of believe something that you don't necessarily agree with, but we need to be able to find common ground. Like, okay, the common ground, how about like BlackRock? I think that should be a common
Yeah,
ground.
yeah.
Like everyone should agree, well, there's this big entity that's buying
That
up everything.
basically owns everything.
They own
They
everything.
basically own the world.
They own the world. Can we start with like agreeing
Can we
that
agree with that?
let's agree with that and agree that maybe that's not good and maybe they're kind of like foisting all this stuff on us. That's all it really takes. But I think people are just like, no, 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 because that goes against, I think a lot of these Trump cult people are still in like, well, it's the Democrats. They're the evil ones. It's like, no, the Democrats and the Republicans are both being controlled by the Black Rocks.
Totally. And I mean, actually, that's a really good point because that should be something that would be easily agreed on by everybody.
Yeah,
Like, if you can show them that this is what's happening, that should be something that should concern everybody, right?
commonsensical.
Yeah. But like, I think maybe we talked about this before. I showed this movie, Who Controls the World,
Yeah.
to a very lefty friend of mine, and it basically breaks it all down and shows you like, okay, there's basically one company that owns and controls everything, like that you buy, everything you eat, everything you watch. They own all the companies, so they're basically controlling everything in your life. And her takeaway was like, Trump is such a racist. And why didn't they talk about George Floyd? And I was just like, wow, you completely missed the point of this whole
Yeah.
thing. Like, it had nothing to do with that. And it wasn't about politics or religion or racism.
It's not interesting.
It wasn't about any of that. But she like totally saw that they didn't talk about any political stuff that was on her side of things. So
See what
she,
it is she is tapped into her narrative.
Mhm,
Everybody's got kind of their own narrative.
mhm.
Now, this is the thing that's interesting about that dynamic. It's all spewing from the same place,
Right.
but it's different narratives.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their own little bubble narrative, but they're listening to their narrative. Now, what you're doing then is you're coming in and saying, but what about this? And they don't want to hear it.
Mm-mm.
That's because that's breaking up that little bubble that they're in, and that bubble is their security. You bust that, they're going to be like, oh, well, now I'm afraid, you
And
know?
now the same thing is happening with, speaking of splitting us further and divide and conquer, the same thing is happening with like the Trump cult, like if you point out any fault in what's happening in that area, a lot of those people don't want to hear that either. They don't want to,
Yeah.
they basically ridicule or, they tear down whatever source you gave them and say that it doesn't make sense or it was a bad source or something like that.
You know why? Because I think right now, I think hopefully it's going to change. I know it's going to change. Right now, we aren't the in crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Our thought process is not the in crowd.
No.
Most people, sadly, lick their finger and hold it up and find out which way the wind is blowing. And that's how they think. And once we become the new zeitgeist, once our worldview becomes the cool kids, then they all are going to follow in because they just kind of follow power.
Right.
Whoever looks like they're the strong ones at the time.
Well, I think that's really true. And so I think like one of the goals of this podcast is for people to hear this, and a lot of people are going to align with that, and they're probably thinking just like we are, and they feel like they don't have a lot of friends that agree with them or whatever. And to hear these conversations, they're going to be, realizing, hey, there's more of us out there, and
It's
then
so true.
I think maybe a few other people will listen, and some of it will register with them, and they might start to think about a few of these things. And
Yeah.
then, what happens is it's just like builds and builds and builds, and more people, the more people that start to realize and talk about these things, then it's going to tip. The scales are going to tip.
That's right. And I think that's what we're in the process of trying to do is because I think a lot of people are open to it. And a lot of people, like we were talking about, self censor.
Mm-hmm.
So once we come out, we start talking about something, that's going to be like, oh, I'm glad you said that because I was thinking the same thing, but I
Yeah.
was kind of thinking I was going insane. Maybe I was wrong,
Right.
because that's another thing that's going on is people are being gaslighted,
Yeah. Right.
so they're seeing something, but then they're being told you didn't see that,
Yeah.
no. And then
Don't
you
believe
bring
what
it
you
up.
saw.
Yeah, but then you bring it up and they go, "Oh my god, yeah, that's right. I did see that and I did feel that." But then I it got washed out of my brain like Will Smith in the Men in Black. Remember he's just like, "Look at
Yeah.
the wand."
Yeah.
That's what happens to these people. And then they forget what happened. So this was a very good episode. I feel like this was a very important aspect of the conditioning that we're under right now. And it's this notion that some people are above the law, and some people it's just like, well, they're too much of a victim to actually commit a crime.
Yeah. Or pay for the crime that they committed.
Yeah, they've been oppressed
Hmm.
by the evil whitey. Evil whitey has been keeping these people down, but they committed a crime. It doesn't matter. They're kind of given a get out of jail free. you
Yeah.
know? And I think that that is part of this conditioning where you bring that up to people and they're just like, no, no, well,
Like,
no.
oh no, that's horrible. Don't say that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's like blatant, you
Well, I
know?
think a lot of the things that are being pushed out with the propaganda these days, uh, it's the same idea with a lot of it. Like, oh no, you can't mention that. You don't talk about that. Like just go along with it, even though it makes absolutely no sense and it's really crazy. But no, no, it's okay because that's what they're
Yeah.
telling us is okay. So
Like the cute people, trust the plan.
yeah.
Duh. All those people have already been executed. They're already down in Gitmo.
Or like the whole idea that it's okay for men to dress up like women and then compete in women's sports.
Yeah.
That's okay because he says he's a girl now.
He's a girl now.
Yeah. So you
Yeah.
should just agree with that.
Or the dude who was like, well, I got imprisoned for several years for rape, but I'm a girl now and I want to be in the girl prison.
So
And they're like,
don't worry, I'll
well,
be fine.
I'm not going to continue raping though, ever. You know, put me in a cellmate, give me a female cellmate, and I'm a serial rapist. What are
It's
we going to do?
yeah.
He's a woman now. It's like, oh my God. I mean, and then if you come out and you say, this is so stupid, you will be in jail with that dude.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, with your thought crimes. I mean, it's amazing how many people will go along with like just nonsense. I mean, this stuff is nonsense, really. It just doesn't make
Well,
sense.
COVID. That's why I still
Nonsense.
think COVID was like a big psychological experiment. It had nothing to do with the virus. It was all like, how much control do we have over people with just the media?
And they found out they had a lot.
A lot.
And I think we need to get into something in another episode about the we've talked a little bit about the dumbing down of society,
Yeah,
but there's also like the drugging down of society. And, you know, so many people are on so many various pharmaceuticals and all the pokes and everything that actually, I think, alter their brains and the way they think
totally.
and make them much more susceptible to being brainwashed and going along
Yeah.
with this stuff. And I think that's all part of the control too.
I totally see that. Like, I went and got a smoothie the other day, and the dude was like 21 that was helping me. And just operating the register, watching him do that was like
Major feat.
grueling. I was in pain. I was
Oh,
like, dude, you're taking forever to do these simple tasks. And then there was no one in there. So I just watched him make my smoothie. And it was really painful because,
mhm.
like, he's really slow. And I'm like, okay, I think
You just wanted to like probably jump behind the counter, do it yourself,
let me
right?
just take care of this. But I was like, oh my God. But then I was thinking, like, these people are vaccinated
Mhm.
and then they're also
Probably drugged up.
brainwashed by, and then they got reuptake inhibitor, like
Hmm.
antidepressants that they're on. I mean, it's a full on assault that this poor kid has been under.
Hmm.
I feel bad for him, but the end result is a
It took you
really
forever to
slow
get a
smoothie.
smoothie.
And I'm like, oh my God. But I think that's right. They have created the perfect new citizen
Hmm.
because,
Well, it's kind of like Brave New World when they were all
yeah,
like on their soma,
mhm.
right?
If you start getting upset, just take some more Soma.
Takes yeah,
That's what I think is going on. And I think what's going on too is those people are very easily
influenced.
influenced. You know,
Yeah.
they're like Sirhan Sirhan. You can just kind of pinch them and then they're somewhere else.
Those are the kind of people they want. And speaking of pinching, I think they put out sort of like pinches on some of the media. You know what I mean?
They get triggered
They
by
get
certain
triggered by
things.
a certain word or something that they put out and
Activated.
they get activated and they're all controlled
I think that was going on in the BLM riots.
totally.
Like when you saw those people kneeling, I kind of felt like they were under a spell.
Hmm.
Like they got activated by their respective social media accounts.
Right.
There's some kind of like,
There was some keyword or something.
because I mean, MK Ultra is real,
It is real.
and they learned how to brainwash people and mind control people, not brainwash. Brainwashing is like a bunch of lies that get you to formulate a worldview that's based on lies.
Yeah,
That's
which
brainwashing.
they're doing that too.
They are doing that, and that's done. That
Massively.
yeah. But now they've even gone into like mind control.
Hmm.
Like we actually control you,
Yeah.
almost like a remote control.
And I mean, that's not a conspiracy theory. That's a fact that's, documented.
MK Ultra is a program.
It's a program.
And what I think you and I have touched on is now they don't just know how to brainwash and mind control one person. They know how to mind control mass people.
Yeah.
Massive.
Hmm.
So, and what if there was like an activator in everybody's social media feed? They know, okay, once they see this, now go out to the streets and burn stuff down. Because remember, that's kind of what the people were doing. They looked like they were just like under a spell
They were crazy.
and following the marching orders, just, like, I'm going to go beat this Target cash register. Like, you ever see that picture of the guy just with a hammer, just like going at a Target, like self checkout machine?
Yeah.
And the look on his face didn't look like somebody that was behind the wheel.
No. Yeah.
That, like if you zoom in on those pictures, you go, that person's not driving.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean, not only that, but they also have people that go into those situations. Like a lot of those BLM people were hired, to go to control the situation, and they were going in, and they could have been doing the pinching. So
the pinching could be they've perfected different activation techniques.
Right.
But I think that could be, maybe we should do an episode on that because that could be a larger topic.
We're going to do an episode on MK Ultra, so I think we'll get more in detail.
Like what? Because obviously they're not going to tell us.
No.
But what has MK Ultra spawned into?
Right.
It's mass
What has MK Ultra done for you lately?
Exactly. Have you been MK Ultra? Like, and I'm starting to see the results of it. Like the Trump cult
Mm-hmm.
and the left cult. Everybody's like, I'm pissed at Elon.
I know. It's like,
but wait a minute,
which cult are you in?
Yeah,
I'm confused.
Yeah.
Don't you have a Tesla?
Because you can be pissed at Elon, and I might agree with you.
Yeah.
But then I'm agreeing with you for the wrong reasons. Because you're like, he's gutting Social Security. I'm like, I don't think he's gutting Social Security. I think maybe
he wants to put a chip in your brain.
Yeah, I think there's something more nefarious going on.
But they're like, but we like the idea of the chip.
The chip was good, and the Teslas are awesome. It's just he's gutting Social Security. It's like, probably not. Probably everything you know is a lie. But you hate Elon now too, so we can agree with that. But we're disagreeing on the fundamental reasons why you don't like Elon.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a weird situation going on right now, where it's like, you can kind of bump up to people's MK Ultra a little bit.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. It'd be like if you're on a first date and you'd be like, all of a sudden, you like the person that you're on a date with just starts MK Ultraing out. Like, just, I cannot speak like that. I must go to the restroom. Like, you're just like, whoa, I bumped up against their programming. I think you could probably do that these days.
I think you can.
You can kind of see, like, when you hit up, like, okay, the human is no longer there. Now I'm dealing with the Muppet, So let's talk about that at another date. But I think today was a great episode.
I think so too.
This was awesome.
We got a little deep.
Yeah, we went down that rabbit hole.
We did.
Well, that's what we do here.
That is what we do. And we're going down another one next time. So
I can't wait.
We'll see you then.
All right, Butterfly. Talk to you soon.